Hi, this is Henk, and welcome to another edition of the Skull Sessions. And today, my guest is Janet Stilson. Is that correct?
Janet Stilson, yep.
All right, awesome. Okay, all right, let's talk about what you got going on.
Well, I wanted to tell you about a couple of novels that I wrote and have been published by Dragon Moon Press. They're both sci-fi, and they fall into, some people describe them as dystopian, some people think of them as thrillers or mysteries. There's a little bit of romance going on. They're called The Juice, and the second book in the series is called The Universe of Lost Messages. And I was inspired to write them because of my other life, which is working as a journalist. I worked as a journalist for many, many years, and my specialty is writing about the media for business publications. And I would go into big media companies and meet with executives and talk with them about what their future plans were, what they had up their sleeve that was going to roll out in the future. And it was pretty fascinating. I went all over the world doing this. And at the same time, I was, struggling because I also wanted to do my creative thing at the same time. And I tried to keep the two worlds apart because, I thought it was like separation of church and state, just never the two shall meet. But then one day it sort of occurred to me, it doesn't really need to be that way because my reporting was so much future focused. I began to wonder what it would be like to be in one of these big media companies a few decades into the future.
Well, now
And
in all the governments have announced that we have found aliens. Like, oh, by the way, it was there all along. Yeah, a side topic. Yeah.
yeah. Um, Yeah, so I started to imagine what these big companies would be like and how they would change our behavior and influence us in different ways, even more than they do today. So that's where you get this kind of dystopian edge of it, but neither of them are like entirely dark and dire. There's humor in there. There's good characters that work at media companies as well as not so good people that work there. And the sort of thing that runs through them is the idea that there's a substance called the juice, the name of the first book, that can make mildly charming people into these super charismatic beings who can get anybody to do anything by just the merest suggestion. And in the first book, there's this dirt poor teen in upstate New York who is used by this big media company um, they transform her by using the juice into this creature who is a, a lot more beautiful than she was to begin with.
So
And
the juice also evolves the way you look. Like, it's not just the way
yeah,
you talk.
everything. It's like, the vibe that you give off, and it can be transmitted electronically as well. So if she does a commercial for chewing gum, all of a sudden there's a run on all the stores for everybody wants to buy this chewing gum, to a massive extent.
Is it
And
something you get one dose and they're good, or is it something you have to continually supply to them?
you have to, yeah, she has to continually get shot up with this substance in order for it to work. And the way the juice is structured is there's three main characters. And the first one is the one I just described. Her name is Luscious. And another one,
Luscious.
yes, she's Luscious Mulata. And
Okay.
the second character is Jarrett, who is a real tech head. He's a rebel, and he's sort of trying to undermine what these big media companies are doing to control us. And the third is a media executive in one of these big companies. And so it sort of goes back and forth between the point of view of these three characters. And eventually comes to a, huge climax that sort of changes the way these three characters are in the universe and how they think about themselves and what they're doing.
I guess you've had quite a bit of experience on like the end of how those people in those positions work, like their mindset and how they think and how they manipulate marks and so on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure that, anybody who talks to a journalist has to, unless you're really drunk, you're gonna keep up a certain wall. But I did have I partied with these people, on the French Riviera, I knew a
So
lot.
you see kind of how they were thinking behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so that's the first book. And then the second book continues the story of these massively charismatic creatures, which are called the Charismites, which is the name of the book series. But it also
Well,
introduces,
those are the people that are taking that drug or whatever the thing is,
yes,
the juice.
yes, they're called Charismites.
Okay.
The second book introduces a second theme, which is why it's called the Universe of Lost Messages. And it's based on something that's happened to me in the past. And I think it happens to a lot of us, where a really important message gets caught in junk mail and you don't see it at all, or you don't see it for a long time. And suddenly you realize, oh my God, look what I've missed. And I started to you know,
That's happened to me more times than I can count.
I know it's crazy. And so in my mind, I started thinking, well, what if, there's a place up in the stratosphere where all of these junk mail messages that are really important are just like trapped. And so I created the universe of lost messages, where through a combination of flukes involving a asteroid that comes down and destroys this cloud server farm, there's a lot of messages are trapped in this universe, and it plays a part in the overall storyline of
So I understand. So they're trapped in an alternate universe, or they're like on like a computerized kind of universe, and then released into this universe. How exactly does it proceed?
it's a virtual world.
Okay.
So it's a metaverse as such.
What the messages are released into?
Yeah, they're like sucked into this virtual world and they can't get out. And only one person knows about it at first, and then a couple more people find out about it because he tells them. And
So who has access to this virtual world?
just these few individual people, just
Like kind of like the Czech geniuses that have the juice.
well, there's a new character in the second book who is a guy named Mercury, and he was working in the server farm as a maintenance dude. And but he was way below his level of expertise when he took on this job. And in his spare time, he's in the process of constructing this virtual world, which is kind of like a space kind of thing. And in the middle of constructing it, an asteroid falls on the cloud farm, and since it's made of this strange alloy that's not found on Earth, and it sends this electric current through Mercury and this virtual world that he's creating, and all the messages that are, in split second timing being relayed through this server farm to get to their end destination, get sucked into this virtual world. So it becomes this, and they can't get out. But Mercury finds them, and a lot of them are just like the kind of annoying messages that we get in our inbox every day that, you immediately delete. But some of them really are very important. And
Well,
he
can you
finds,
imagine how many messages, like if something encapsulated all the messages, how many there would be?
yeah, I mean, this is just one server farm. So it's like millions of messages, but it's not like every message across
Like
the entire
billions. Yeah.
world. Yeah, yeah. So Anyway, that plays a part in the overall story, which takes place a couple of decades after the juice takes place. And at this point in time, there's a new generation of charismatic characters who are in their late teens. And one of them is this pop star extraordinaire, and one is like a nature boy who lives inside this biosphere in upstate New York, and he's being protected by his parents, who are two of the characters in the first novel, because they know that he can be used, and people won't react to him as a normal human being. And these two characters get abducted by this political group that has nefarious, you know, plans for them to use them massively to basically take over the world. And so a lot of the story has to do with getting them out of this private prison that nobody can find. And so characters from the first novel, who were the main characters, become secondary characters in the second novel as these two new people who are the next generation of charismites become the main characters. Am I
Have
making?
you seen? Oh yeah, yeah. What I'm thinking is, so did you watch the show The Expanse?
No.
Really good.
Okay.
And they actually had Neil deGrasse Tyson and Michio Kaku and I forget who else. Lawrence Krauss was on a. They were on a panel and they were talking about the most realistic space shows they've seen because a lot of them like make up a whole bunch of like bullshit. Like they talk about how incredibly unrealistic the transporters in Star Trek are. You know,
I know, aren't they? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, like they basically have to kill people and reconstitute them every single time, but regardless. So, but they're talking about how The Expanse is the most realistic series they've seen. Like they got a bunch of stuff right, and I watched the whole thing. It's like I don't know, it's 5 seasons or 6 seasons, but originally it started on Sci-Fi, and then Sci-Fi is not known for pouring a lot of money into their projects. And they're like, yeah, man, this is costing us way too much. So they're going to cancel it. And then I guess the fans liked it so much that they rented a plane and they had like a banner behind that said "Save the Expanse," and they flew over top of a place where Jeff Bezos was doing a speech. And that
I love
convinced
it.
Jeff Bezos. So he's like, "Well, if the fans are this dedicated, I better pick it up." So then Amazon finished it, but it's really good, and it talks about like giant corporations and they basically expanded it out so like there's one kind of like uh like nation that controls the Earth, but there's another one that controls Mars. There's another one that controls the asteroid belt. They're called the Belters out there, and there are these giant companies that like play all sorts of games and stuff. But yeah, it reminds me like not in a rip off way, but like kind of like along the lines of what you're doing. But I really like what you're doing with the whole juice thing. It's like I really like when people have like a new take on something. Like it's like a concept people have done before, like space. Like a million people have done space. It's more what you do with it than the background, which is space or horror or science fiction, fantasy or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally get what you mean. And, there is no original stories out there. I mean, it's, I mean, in the sense that something's always been done to a certain extent in the past. You can
But
make it your own in your own individual ways. But I'll have to look at The Expanse. I'm curious now that you mention it. You
yeah,
know,
it's actually really good. I don't think actually that it's a bad idea that it's like stuff is kind of based off other stuff. Like one of the most popular things out there as far as sci-fi goes is Star Wars. And I know George Lucas, when he made Star Wars, based a lot of it on existing tales and myths. And that's where his strength was. In fact, I think they've gotten away from that because they don't have him. So people keep like interjecting other things, and then it's kind of like there was an initial story arc to Star Wars, and they kind of lost that. But it's great when people have like a story arc and they like kind of like plotted out in a way that like you bond with it a little bit, but at the same time it intrigues you.
Yeah, yeah, I totally get that. I've just started watching Andor. I'm a little slow on the take with that Star Wars part of the greater body of works, and I'm really enjoying that and the
Oh, I
whole.
watched the first season. I didn't watch the second one. I kind of find the Star Wars, like the modern Star Wars stuff, kind of hit or miss. Like I really like that first season of The Mandalorian. I don't know if you saw that.
I
Um,
started it, yeah.
and then I remember I saw like the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and I thought it was horrible. So
Yeah,
it's like up and down, kind of depends.
yeah, I think that that's the, when when Hollywood tries to do a lot of different iterations on something that's been successful, they always run the risk that some of it's just not gonna pay off, you know. But that's
Right. Well,
that's
I think what I appreciate most is like strong stories. Like I don't care, it's not like some people get like really tied up with like promoting a social agenda. I'm like, that's fine, but how about a good story that promotes it? Like the a good story tells you way more than if you just like preach to people.
yeah,
I mean, that's
yeah.
sidetrack. We're getting off on something, other than what
No,
we're
but
talking about. I'm just saying good stories are my absolute favorite.
right, yeah, and it's interesting because for before I started writing novels, I was writing film scripts and TV scripts, and one of the things that I realized in writing them is that you're kind of painting with emotions. That emotions are really, really important in when you're working on scripts, because that's what really draws people into the stories. Um, and I've come to realize that that's really what drives me, whether it's in a novel or in a television show or whatever. It's the underlying emotions of the characters and what the people involved are able to bring out. It's it's
Right,
it's much more important to me than, you know, how many fight scenes there are, for
right,
example.
right.
It
You
just
don't have to check off the boxes. Actually, I think that's probably the worst. Is like when you just check off the boxes. That's a very short shelf life. Like maybe that's popular now, so you put it out now and it has a little bit of like a flare up, but it's like nobody's gonna stick with that, years later unless it's a strong story.
right, right. And I also get really attracted to humor in
Right.
stories. Stories that are well told. I just finished this novel. I was listening to it in audiobook form. It's called Service Model. It's up for a Hugo Award this year, which is the big sci-fi award. And
Okay.
it's by this British author named Adrian Tchaikovsky. And he imagines a robot who's a valet sometime off in the distant future. And this valet is, unintentionally very funny. And he has a sidekick and he sort of moves through this kind of crumbling world after he unintentionally slits his master's throat. And
Unintentionally.
it's just so well told. And the author is actually the narrator of the podcast, and he uses all of these different voices. And you can just sort of imagine, like when he was writing this book, he probably had all these voices in his head. So it's kind of cool to sort of listen to him narrate the story.
Yeah, I think the thing about like I love sci-fi, I'm a big fan of sci-fi, but I think I'll like read something really good. Like I read Old Man's War, I don't know if you read that, but it's a great story. There's another one called The Forever War, which is also a great story. So I'll read something like that. I'm like, oh man, I should check out some more sci-fi. And the next one will be complete garbage. And I'm like, all right, I'm no more sci-fi for me for a while. Then like my big thing is like cosmic horror, like kind of the H.P. Lovecraft, a little bit of
Yeah,
sci-fi, a little bit of horror mix in, and but yeah, with every trope, even with that, like some people just get it wrong, so it's like you have to bounce around and find stuff that this interesting.
Yeah, it's really true. I've been my method of late is to the Hugo Awards are going to be awarded in August and the nominations are out. So I've been slowly but surely reading down the list of the nominations because the Hugos are given out by sci-fi and fantasy fans.
Right.
So
So it's a little bit better bet.
yeah, you figure, well, a lot of people like these stories, so maybe
Right.
it's a good bet. So that's been
Well,
my,
that's actually how I found stuff like Old Man's War. It's like so many people whose opinion, I would trust said that's a great novel. You have to read it. And it is. If you haven't read it, I'd definitely read it. It has a great premise, which I love. I'm sure every premise has been used in history, but they have like a clever take on it.
yeah. Do you ever find that you started a book, say, 5 years ago, and you thought, oh no, this is just, making me cross my eyes. It's just boring. And then you pick it up later on and you think, oh, wait a minute here. There's something going on that I really like. I mean, have you ever experienced that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think also part of that comes with age. If I read something when I was 19, if I read a book, I had to complete it. Just like maybe that's my OCD or whatever. But it's like if I read the book, I had to finish it. And then I got to a point where it's like if it didn't grab me, I'm like there are so many books out there. There's no way you're gonna read everything before you die. So focus on the ones that are good. And then, some people would be like, man, you really should have given that more of a shot. So I've gone back. So yeah, that's happened.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's happened more with like adaptions when people do an adaptation of a book to a movie. And like I'll see the movie and as that, especially the young fanboy, you're like, they didn't capture the whatever this in the book. And then later on I watch it, I'm like, actually the movie wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it's interesting how we're so lucky today in that we have all these ways of consuming stories. We can look at an adaptation of a novel in film or television, and more people are turning to audiobooks. And I had a recent experience where I started this. Rebecca Yarros has this extremely popular dark romantasy series, first book of which is called Fourth Wing. And I started listening to the audiobook and I was like, oh man, I don't like this woman's voice at all. And I started reading the book and using my own internal voice, I could get into it. And I had the exact opposite experience with this novel I was just mentioning, Service Model, where I could not get into reading the book. But then when I listened to the audiobook, I was like, okay, now I get it. It's
Well,
just,
I think what it is I get all my books made into an audio version because I'm surprised how many people are like, yeah, man, I don't read. I'm like, I can't believe that you've made it this far. But anyways, so I know that sometimes if you the audio person because the audio person will put like their tone on it, so they emphasize certain words, and they use different slang and so on. Sometimes that helps bring it out, and sometimes, what you came up with in your mind does it better. So it's a
yeah.
mixed bag.
Yeah. I was lucky because I recently there my publisher recently published an audiobook version of The Juice with
Okay.
two different narrators doing the different character voices.
Right.
It turned out really, really well. One of the narrators is named Emily Wu Zeller, who's done a lot of video games. She was a voice in Cyberpunk 2077 and The Last of Us Part 2, and she's done a ton of other, just regular audiobooks.
I watched the TV show The Last of Us, and I've
Yeah.
only seen the first season, but that's really good.
Yeah, yeah, I love, love, love that show. Yeah. The second season is good too. You'll have to definitely watch that for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So Yeah, so there's the audiobook version if anybody's more, prone to listening rather than reading as well. I think it's going to
Okay.
be more and more important as time goes by. I mean, I was listening to somebody talk the other day who was saying that the literacy rate of sixth graders is really down. And so audiobooks is one way to get people who are younger at that age level to really
I wonder if iPhones and like digital smartphones have a lot to do with that. So like
probably,
instead of like you, because I remember in high school, like all you had was a book. So either you concentrated on the book, or basically you did nothing, you doodled or whatever, So, but
right?
I guess if you had the phone to constantly be looking at, you wouldn't learn.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a niece who teaches sixth grade in Manhattan, and the way she gets her sixth graders to get into reading is to have them sit at their desk with a written book in front of them and listen to the audiobook at the same time they're looking at the pages, which I think is an interesting way to get them to focus on it.
Okay. I mean, whatever works. 'Cause it seems like kids are hard to reach these days, and I mean, I sound old if I say that, but it's like whatever works.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about what you have coming out. So do you stick with first person, third person, like present tense, past tense? How do you relate the story?
I use first person narration, and they're telling the story of what happened to them in the past. Uh,
Okay.
and so in
Do you have
both,
more than one character this in first person? So you have like yeah, I did that in one of my books. Yeah, I think it's a great choice.
yeah, I do it. The way that I've constructed them is like, for example, in the Juice, um, one chapter will be narrated by Luscious, the charismatic character, and then the next will be narrated by the tech head rebel, whose name is Jarrett, and then the third chapter will be narrated by Petra, who's the media executive, who actually is a kind of an interesting person because one of her side stories is that she can't have she cannot conceive a child at this point in time. It's very, very hard to find a mate that has semen that is essentially good, that will birth a child, help you conceive a child that doesn't have really bad disabilities. And
Well,
so
that's worldwide, or that's with her.
no, that's worldwide. And so if you're a very, very wealthy person, which she is, then there are selective sperm banks that you can go to get your sperm, but even they are compromised by a virus. And so she doesn't know what to do. And there's a scientist that works in the same media company as she is in, who says, well, I'm working on this experiment. And all you have to do is insert this little computer chip in your arm. And as you're walking down the street or, down the hallway, um, it will suddenly tell if you're in proximity of a stranger that you could fall in love with, that you would be simpatico
Oh,
with.
that's a little twist. Yeah,
And,
I love when people incorporate a whole bunch of different elements of something. Like I don't know if you read the book like Snow Crash or The Diamond Age. Both are by Neil Stilson. But
love his stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
there's a whole bunch of complexities interwoven in there, and I think they definitely string the story.
Well, it goes further than that because if it figures out who you might fall in love with, then suddenly up pops before you a long line of holograms of children, imaginary children, that will show you what your children might look like if you conceived with a particular man. And so
Okay.
part of her, and there's, it's sort of like imaginary children as such, and she kind of goes slightly insane trying to find the man who's, triggering images of one particular girl with these startled eyes. So that's sort of like a subplot that runs through the first book.
Okay, yeah, no, it sounds like actually there's a lot of interesting elements here. What's they grab my attention definitely. So it are all the elements interwoven in all the books, or is like each one brings up a new one?
They're interwoven. Like what I tried to do is each each chapter that comes one after another is it's not like all divergent with different stories that never connect. Eventually you'll see the plot line running through all of the chapters as the storyline comes together and you see where it is we're headed.
And all the books are kind of a continuation, like they all kind of like they're part of the same continuity, the same universe.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. I'm in the middle of writing a third book that's in the same series.
Okay, so you have two out right now, and you're working on the third one.
Yep.
Okay, and what's the rough word length or page length?
I think it's around 400.
Okay.
400 pages. The second one, I'm really pleased. It came out about a year ago, and it's won two awards. It won a NYC Big Book Award, and then it won an IPPY Award, which is put out for people who are published by independent press.
Okay, awesome. And so who's your publisher?
It's called Dragon Moon Press
Okay.
Out of Canada. Yeah, they
Okay.
specifically specialized in fantasy and sci-fi.
Okay. And would you it be best to see your stuff on their website,
Uh, you could go there, but it's also on all the major retail sites.
like
Uh,
Barnes and Nobles and Amazon
oh yeah, in
and
fact,
wherever fine books are sold?
basically, yeah. I mean, maybe the easiest way is to just go to my website, which is
Okay.
janetstilson.com, and go on the individual pages for the two books. And right at the top of the page, it lists down all the various options that are out there. I mean, some people don't like to buy Amazon or Barnes and Noble. Well, there's other options out there. You
No,
don't have.
I know I put books on Amazon, but I also put them on Barnes and Nobles, and the people like I refuse to buy anything off Amazon. So,
Yeah, yeah. And this is
I
something.
mean, as an author, you do make a little more off Amazon, but it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Give people a choice.
So, if they go to your website, could they get like signed books? Do you offer anything? Like I know people when they run like a Kickstarter, they do like plushies or they do like all sorts of stuff, sticker, bookmarks, whatever.
No, I haven't done anything like that, but you're giving me a good idea. I should probably offer something like that. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's lots of other stuff on the site. Like, for example, there's an excerpt of the audiobook if you want to just check out the first pages of the novel and how it sounds in the
So if
audiobook.
they go to your website, they can listen to premiere of the novel.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
awesome.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of interviews that I've done on the site. I'll put yours on the site so people can, see it there as well.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I found whenever I do an author convention, the especially stickers, people love stickers. So stickers go like hotcakes. So you
Really, that's
might, yeah.
interesting.
I don't know why, but you would think bookmarks would go like hotcakes. They don't. People love stickers. And I also made magnets, and the magnets went really fast, but they're a little pricey. So,
Oh,
you might
that's
want to
good
think
to
about that.
know. I'm going to go to Worldcon which is in Seattle. Do you ever go to Worldcon?
I went to the World Horror Convention. I don't think it was the same thing. I don't even know if they're
Yeah.
allied, but that was in Austin, Texas. So I went there one year, but it's like in a different city every year. And I've been to like SoberCon. Usually I go to a lot of like horror stuff. Like I do a lot of illustrations for like books and magazines, and I've kind of ended up doing a lot for like horror stuff. So and I'll say, hey, what convention would you recommend? And they'll tell me, so I'll just go there. But
Right.
I really like sci-fi. I just haven't done as much, so I don't really know that I don't really know what to go to.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is going to be my first time checking out Worldcon. It's in Seattle in August, and it's the organization that puts out the Hugo Awards, and
Okay.
it both sci-fi and fantasy, and it also travels all over the world. Last year was in Edinburgh or Glasgow, I guess it was, and this year it's in Seattle. But you're giving me an idea with the stickers. I think rather than business cards, I'm gonna, get a bunch of stickers of
I'm telling you,
the
people
book.
love stickers, and the great thing about stickers, they place them with stuff so everybody sees it all the time.
That's cool. I like that. Good idea.
So
Thank you.
the best way to see your stuff is go to your website and probably could they buy a copy from you directly on your website? Or is it
No,
like a link to like
I
Amazon and
don't
Barnes and
do
Noble?
that. No, I just have my publisher, make it available in the retailers' sites, and that's the best way to buy it.
Or I take it if you go to a convention, you have copies of your novels, you can sign for people right there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the next one you'll be at is WorldCon.
Worldcon, yep, in Seattle in August.
Okay. When is it in August, you know?
Hang on, let me look at my calendar. I've written this down. Um, let's see. Okay, so it starts on August 13th,
Okay.
and I believe it ends on the 17th.
That's a long convention, yeah.
I know it sounds like a real fun one. I mean, they have one day where everybody dresses up in costume and masquerade, and they
A
have
kind of like a cosplay sort of thing, yeah.
I guess, and they have a film festival that's attached to it, and all sorts of
Do
different stuff
the all
going
the
on.
Star Trek people that have the uniforms and like they
I
think
can't
they're
wait to
like
see what they come up with.
all right,
I think
well, have fun there. Is there anything else you want to throw to the social sphere, like stuff that you recommend people check out?
Well, one thing that they could do is if you go to my author page on Facebook or go to my Amazon or my Instagram account, I've been posting excerpts from the audiobook over the course of June because who knew? It's audiobook month. Um,
Right.
and so you could also get other tastes of the book by going to those sites. If you go to my website, you'll see links to those to my pages or my
What are you on Instagram?
what it's called, you're asking?
Yeah, like what's your name on Instagram?
I believe it's uh author Janet Stilson.
Okay, and what's your Facebook page?
Janet Stilson.
Okay, awesome. All
Very
right,
original.
everyone go check it out. Throw lots of money her way, and hopefully she'll get signed for like something when Hollywood comes calling, and like give you lots of money.
Yeah,
But
I'm hoping.
I had lots of people that were like busy bee worker bees, and then they got a big check from Hollywood, and they kind of slowed way down, which is kind of unfortunate because there's some people that put out some really good stuff. But
Yeah. I wish I
hopefully,
had that luck.
hopefully you'll get the money and you won't slow down.
Well, it's been really nice talking to you, Dan.